Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the E-Commerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-Commerce Edge podcast with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. It is my incredible pleasure to welcome Mr. Jeremy E-Commerce Redneck GRYDER to the podcast. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hello. It's really nice to be here. I am thoroughly impressed with you. Always have been. As I've told you before, you inspired a lot of what I do online. And for me to get out there and talk about e-commerce, super huge privilege to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Look, I do not take that for granted. I really appreciate that. And look, I think for those of us that have been in the industry for a very long time, I've always felt an obligation. I've always felt the need, the desire, the want to send the ladder back down again, right? Because I was very lucky when I first started out my career 25 years ago. I was very lucky to work with some extremely smart people in our industry that shepherded me, helped me, supported me, educated me, helped me feel welcome in the industry, basically. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today without those foundational people that helped me build my career and give me guidance in the beginning. And so if I can do that through my content and send that ladder back down again and help our industry be better and do better, then I'll feel like I've done the right thing. And that's how my content game actually began, to be perfectly honest with you.
And it's funny, I think you have to get past the fear that sharing too much is going to take away from your consulting or your business. And you got to be a little bit fearless about that and just start putting stuff out there. And I think that truly, if you have the depth to put content on a consistent basis out, it shows that you're not a shallow pool when it comes to knowledge. So I think it's great.
It shows the humility.
Yeah, you got to always
you want to learn.
And with AI moving like it is and how it's intertwining with the new announcement of how ChatGPT is going to sell through that, and you can connect it to checkouts, like insanity, like whole other game. We've got, it's like it doesn't get any slower. It just gets faster and faster. And I feel like between the last time I saw you, which was on the 16th of last month, and now, we had a podcast in between there, and now like things have changed. And so it's like you've got to be on it all the time. And then there's people like you that kind of focus more on B2B sometimes or know more about B2B, and people like me that tend to be more on the CPG and mid-market and up kind of thing and growth oriented around, there's different focuses. It's hard to be a polymath anymore in e-commerce.
And I think that is also the beauty of e-commerce. It almost doesn't matter what your interest is, whether you're a creative, whether you're a data geek, whether you are a B2B person, a D2C, B2C person, whether you're a digital retail person. It doesn't whether you're just a straight business person, a CFO type. It doesn't really matter what your interest is in this world or where your natural tendency will take you. There is something for you in this industry, no matter what that is. And I think that is something that I've learned more and more, whether it's development and you're a coding person, it literally does not matter what your interest is in this world that you naturally gravitate to. There's room for you in our industry, whether you're a people person and so you want to do partnerships on the vendor side, whether between vendors and SIs and merchants, there is room for you. And I love that. And I also love the fact that our industry has always been pretty diverse. People from different backgrounds, different genders, different races, different everything. Basically, if you are hungry and you're hungry to learn and you're hungry to contribute, there's room for you. And I've always loved that about our industry.
I love it too. And honestly, coming from a town that was heavily Hispanic, so that was my shade on everything, was a little bit of Hispanic mixed with other stuff. But no, didn't have a whole lot of exposure to different kinds of people. And getting into e-commerce opened that up for me, and specifically spending so much time at Big Commerce. It had such a great culture when I was there, and being a part of that, man, it helped me be a better person, to grow, become more personally aware. I had a lady come up to me that was one of the directors, and she said, somebody wants to talk to you. This lady wants to talk to you, but she's afraid of you. I'm like, afraid of me? Why would that be? And she goes, you're not very self-aware. You're 6'5" and 250 pounds and tattooed. You need to be a little more aware. And I was like, wow. But it was little things like that, constantly being shaped and being around people like Brent Belm, which is just a powerhouse, and people like Robert Alvarez. I don't know if you've ever met him. He was the
No,
CFO for 12 years. Talk
I
about a
know of
culture
him, but I
king.
never met him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, he's got something coming up now. I don't know what it is. He's a friend of mine, and he won't tell me. But you can bet I'm going to be on that, pushing that whatever it is when it comes out, because it will be awesome. He's a powerhouse, man. He's what I'll put it to you this way: Big Commerce never IPOs without both Robert Alvarez and Brent Belm.
Yep.
Never happens.
Yep. It's such an interesting thing. When I first started out in the industry, it was all about Magento, right? It was every Magento this, Magento that, and I cut my teeth in the Magento ecosystem when I first started out in this industry. That's how I got my start, working for a Magento Gold Partner agency. I became solution specialist certified on the Magento platform, which there's a lot of transferable skills that you learn when you learn about any e-commerce platform in depth. There's a tremendous amount of transferable skills. And when you have been in the industry as long as we have, or even people that have been in the industry longer than us, you had to be a generalist when you first started out, because we were all figuring it out as we went along. There was no, I remember the days when if you ran a website, you were just called a webmaster. You had to know it all. You had to understand DNS. You had to understand digital marketing. You had to understand a little bit about design. You had to understand Dreamweaver. You had to understand, you just had to understand a little bit of everything in the beginning. You had to understand a little bit about Flash. You had to understand a little bit about frames. You just had to know a little bit
Sometimes
about
you
everything.
were a jack of all trades and a master of none.
100%, and we were all 100% a slave to what Google was telling us to do back then too. It's less so now, especially with competition from other platforms and social and AI. But the reality is, we were all like little marionettes sitting underneath Google's shadow, right? And basically, we were engineering websites to keep Google happy primarily. And sometimes we went a little bit overboard on keeping Google happy, and maybe we weren't as focused on keeping the customer happy as we should have been, because we knew that unless we made Google happy, nobody was going to find our site anyway, and nobody was going to see our site anyway. And so it feels like that's started to come full circle now, these answer engines. And it feels like now, instead of SEO, now we're doing GEO and answer engine optimization now. And it feels like the industry has definitely started to come full circle. Are you seeing that too?
Oh, absolutely. And it's so much fun. Like I'm scared to death to get out of the industry for 2 seconds,
Yeah.
because I feel like between last year and now, everything's changed. I've seen softwares that have completely lapsed other softwares in a matter of months. And I'll tell you, the AI thing is interesting only when it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much crap out there, honestly. And there's so many people that are not putting it together across their platforms, or they're focusing so much on AI that there's no real governance around what it's doing, and how the legacy knowledge maybe of what needs to be in there and that sort of thing sometimes is not played out. But there are a few of them doing it really well. And I think it's exciting, man. And even one of my favorite things is, and I know this is Shopify. Everybody talks about Shopify. I'm really hot on Shopify, Big Commerce, or Commerce, sorry. It's commerce.com now. And Shopware right now. I like those three for a lot of things. I think Shopify is very easy. But one of the coolest things they did, and it's another one of the Shopify, since we were up against them early on, it's hard to be like nice in my head about what I think about things. But this is one of those things. In their template now, they have this sidekick chat thing where you say, I want this type of a section, and it creates it. And I'm like, mind blown. You don't even need to code on Shopify anymore. So like for a lot of things. I'm not saying everything. It still helps to know some of that and get it fine tuned. But it's just incredible. Like we are moving so fast, and we really have to be cross disciplinary in a lot of things to keep up with what's going on and be of use. I'm just trying to continue to be relevant.
Yeah. No, I feel that same pull and I feel that same motivation, and I'm still just as excited to get up every day and do what I do as I was 25 years ago. I literally haven't lost any enthusiasm. In fact, if anything, I'm more enthusiastic about our industry today than I was 25 years ago, just because I've seen enough of these patterns play out before to know that this is truly one of the next big things, and it's going to be as transformative to our industry as mobile was. And mobile was, prior to AI, mobile was definitely the most disruptive change that happened to our industry in a really compressed period of time. The app ecosystem started to become really important. This started to become literally the remote control of our lives. And I
Mhm.
tell you that the rate at which mobile got adopted by the general public was so rapid, and we were struggling to keep up. Originally, we were building mobile, dedicated mobile M.dot sites. Then we got religion about building mobile responsive sites instead. Then a lot of people started building apps because of the interactivity and the stickiness that apps can provide. And there's many other sort of lesser patterns that I've seen play out from a technical perspective. We've seen whole new categories of software come to our industry: search, merchant, personalization, and the fusion of those three. That has really transformed our industry and transformed the customer experience. All the different payment methods that now are available out there have transformed our industry and made e-commerce accessible to a much wider buying audience. And then just the pure advent of platforms like a Shopify and others. But Shopify really, I think, helped to make e-commerce accessible to almost any business. Like at a
That's right.
you just did not need to be that technical to get up and running with a basic Shopify website. And you still don't. You still don't need to be technical. In fact, you
Mm.
probably need to be even less technical today than you did a couple of years ago with Sidekick. And so we're going through every 3 to 6 years in our industry, we see these massive upheavals, right? These massive leaps forward in what our industry does and the transformation of the customer experience. And then I'll get your thoughts on this in a second, but I think the other massive change that I saw really start to take deep hold on our industry 10 to maybe 12 years ago was this idea of completely unified omni-channel, right? Meaning that, hey,
Mhm.
look, we need to have, regardless of the touch point that our customers engage with us through, they need to feel emotionally the same way about our brand, regardless of what touch point they choose to engage with us through. Whether they buy online, pick up in store, whether they buy online, return in store, buy in store, return online, they need to be able to see the same ranges. They need to be able to see the same pricing. They need to be able to have all the
Mhm.
same services extended to them and available to them online, in store, social, etc. And so I feel like there's been these periods of massive upheaval that we've all had to adapt to. And I think if you've only been in the industry for the last, say, 2 to 3 years, you maybe haven't seen all those upheavals happen. You
Mm-mm.
might be, if you joined our industry 3 years ago, for example, and then 2 years ago, you started really diving into the AI side of our industry, you wouldn't realize that we've seen this before. Maybe not to the
Mhm.
degree that AI is impacting our industry, but it's not like our industry hasn't seen upheavals before where people were saying that's the death of e-commerce or that's the death of whatever. These kinds of sayings have been said many times before.
I look at e-commerce as basically any monetization that happens through the internet,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
And so if you look at it from that perspective, sure, it will change. It will become a whole different beast at some point. It'll be beyond websites. It'll be in our chats with AI and everything else. And that's already happened. So, man, it's funny. My favorite thing about it all is 13 years ago, if you showed somebody a slider, they would lose their mind because it was
Yep.
so cool that your website had a slider. And now people, like, the psychology of how people look at websites has changed. They don't care if you have a slider. In fact, if you have 3 or 4 slides, the chance of them getting past the first one is nil to none. And so people have switched it out with video and other things. So there's all these elements in the way that people view it, even that has changed. And Now we have video commerce. It's, dude, I feel like you got to buckle in for the ride because the technology's changing that fast. And people are looking to people like me and you to say, hey, look at these guys, or look at these guys, or this is how you should go after this, or this is how you should connect to this sales channel. For you, you should be focusing on this. And it's not a one size fits all for everybody. I always tell people, you got 95 to 98% of people that can use Shopify. It's simple. It was built to be simple in the beginning. It's getting more complex. There's more you can do with it now. But if you have a need for a lot of integrations, maybe that's big commerce. If you need total customization, like a Magento store had to be back in the day, maybe that's Shopware. There's all these different options, and the race to the top with all of these different kinds of carts, man. A scale, there's a scale, and then all these
And
shop.
then if you look at B2B, then it's
line,
crazy.
yeah, it's insane. And yeah, and then you throw B2B in there. And I'm not real strong in B2B. I know it on big commerce pretty well, but B2B is like a whole other beast. And then how does it apply to B2B? How do can you use the same tools? It doesn't always work the same. And should you be on Shopify for B2B, or should you be on big commerce? Most of the time I would say no on Shopify for B2B, but they're even starting to figure some stuff out this month or next month. They're finally breaking that options problem they had forever. That was embarrassing. They had 100 option limit. There were so many platforms that were smoking them on that. And now they're past that. Now all these platforms that were cooking their goose and certain deals, they've got a little more of that market, a little more niche. But it's cutthroat between those platforms though.
It absolutely is, and ultimately the merchants and their customers end up being the winner out of this duel. But I think
Right.
what's interesting, because for the last 5+ years of my career, I've doubled and tripled down on the B2B world, and what's super interesting is there hasn't yet been the level of consolidation, platform consolidation in the B2B world that there are over the last decade. It's, if you're not Shopify or WooCommerce, you're going to really struggle in the B2C and D2C world to grab market share. They almost have won that war, so to speak. But in the B2B world, that hasn't happened yet. We're starting to see some consolidation and some attrition starting to happen, but we've got maybe 30 plus either solely B2B or B2B heavy platforms out there today. And that's not going to be the case. If we look at 2 to 5 years from now, that is not going to be the case. There's too much feature and function overlap between too many of those platforms for them all to survive. It just won't happen. So we're either going to get platforms that just go away because they run out of financial runway, or there's going to be some M&A activity that happens out there. There's going to be some that come to the fore in specific niche verticals. You've got like Equip 360, for example, that works specifically in the heavy commercial, heavy industrial space, and they've carved out their niche there, and they've gone all in on that heavy equipment space. And so I think we're going to get a couple of really heavy verticalized B2B platforms, and then we'll end up with maybe 2 or 3 more generic B2B specific platforms, and then everybody else is going to be fighting for the scraps. So it's an interesting thing watching this play out, and I think what prompted it was that historically B2B has been like 95% human to human driven, right? Those sales have happened human to human and with an account manager or a sales rep or a BDR, whatever it is. And then COVID hit. And all of a sudden, these manufacturers and distributors...
COVID screwed up everything.
Yeah, it screwed up absolutely everything, right? And it made them realize, geez, we can't have sales reps on a call cycle on the road. We have to, at the very least, start doing Zoom calls with our customers. And we have to be able to service these customers digitally because we can no longer service them physically. Oh my God, we realize that digital routes to market and our customers finding us digitally now is actually important to our business. And so it put a rocket under lots of B2C businesses too. Even pre-COVID, the stats were like greater than 95% of retail businesses offered e-commerce. But in the B2B world, it was like less than 20%. And so the reality is we were starting off a much, much lower base in the B2B world. We were in the B2C world pre-COVID. And now we still have, depending on the vertical and category, 40 to 60% of B2Bs, manufacturers and distributors, that don't offer e-commerce. Or what they call e-commerce is EDI or e-procurement. That's what they consider e-commerce, not self-service e-commerce. And so I tell you, COVID really, it it caused a lot of businesses to force rank their digital priorities in a way that they never had to do before. Did you see that too?
Honestly, I had just left Big Commerce, started an agency. We hired 10 people, very talented crew. We got sort of going, and then that happened and totally clinched up, and all of our stuff shut down, and we were scratching to stay alive.
Yeah.
So, man, it did. There was a guttural reaction, and we had got some very good sized clients. And primarily on the Big Commerce system, we were really good experts at that system. And man, it got rough. It got rough quick. Had COVID not happened, things would have turned out a little different. But I also was able to take advantage of that. I was able to ship, I think it was something like $75 million worth of masks to Texas schools. Hooked up, connected some people, made a deal, made it happen.
Wow.
They got the contract. Yeah. So, man, I'll tell you too, Jason, I'm an entrepreneur first, and so getting into e-commerce was just a vehicle for that. Like, my dream is to eventually have a whole bunch of my own stores, making money, growing them the way I know how to grow them, which is through the tech stack, SEO, and having the right paid crew in place for advertising. And who knows, maybe a B2B play too. May need your help on that.
I love it. Tell me about Metal Men. How did Metal Men come to be? And did that spring out of that very first deal that you did for the masks?
No, Metal.men is a men's group out of California that I'm a part of.
Okay, interesting.
And so Metal.men is a group of men. I'll name drop a little bit because these guys are in this group. Nolan Bushnell, who started Atari and Chuck E. Cheese. Freddie Revell, who was Santana's keyboardist for 30 years and was the only white guy to ever play in Earth, Wind, and Fire, I believe. Kenny Arnoff, who's one of the greatest drummers in the world, was John Cougar Mellencamp's and Bon Jovi's, Madonna's. All these powerful men. Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Wow, that one was bad. But you know what I'm saying? It's just all these really powerful men. I got invited to be a part of this group through a connection I had at Big Commerce and a guy that I did some e-commerce work with, and man, it really changed my life. I'd love for you to visit sometime, man. You'd fit right in. It's full of entrepreneurs and people that just don't give up, and the biggest focus is on being what we call heart-centered men. Yep. Contributing as positive citizens. But the beauty of it, it's not a networking group, but those guys end up helping you in life. And man, it's been a huge blessing. And I'll tell you, for instance, like I had you to see on LinkedIn, honestly, when you started going out there and with the phone, hey, and doing that, I was like, this guy's got guts, man. I'm going to start doing that too. I can talk about stuff and I've got so many things. And so you gave me a way to open up. And so that was the start of the Ecommerce Redneck. That's where the idea grew from is, people pay attention when I do this. And then it turned into, I started doing a podcast that was just a culture podcast called RealMojo.live. Had a lot of really cool guests, but I was like, man, I don't care about being popular. I want to use this persona to help me make money and make others money. And I got going with that. And Gary Meyer from that group, who is in I believe the Radio Hall of Fame, like National Radio Hall of Fame, was a big DJ in Chicago, had a show where he crushed 30,000 disco records at Wrigley Field, I believe it was. And he heard one of my podcasts with the first podcast I did. And he's like, dude, you got to keep going. And that's all I need. Between you and him, I was like golden, man. And and I just keep doing it. I think I'm getting better at it, but even if I'm not, I don't really care because I don't need other people's approval to make me feel good.
Yeah. I reckon joy and happiness and fulfillment, those are all inside jobs. They're not external. And if you rely on external validation, that external validation is going to let you down at some point. And so I think all this stuff, this peace, the joy, the fulfillment, everything, whether you're religious or not, whether you're into God or not, is irrelevant for the purposes of this conversation. But all of those things, they have to come from within you. Ultimately, if it's going to be sustainable, those have to come from within you. And I totally agree with you, man. And I tell you, I guess I was raised to be quite independent. I'm very fortunate that I had very strong parents who helped me understand my self-worth as opposed to the extrinsic worth that comes from the outside and the external validation that brings. And so I was always a little bit of a rebel. I got married very late. I met my wife when I was 42 years old.
Oh wow.
We haven't had kids. We don't, neither of us want kids. I was born in the United States, lived in New Zealand for almost 30 years, been living in Mexico since
And you've got a
2022.
crazy accent because of it.
Yeah,
Just like little bit of an accent, and it's funny. It's awesome. I love it.
it's a
I
weird,
couldn't
it's a
tell
weird,
where you were from.
I know it sounds like I'm at war with myself, doesn't it? But it's
Yeah.
so interesting. So I've never done things like the traditional way. Grow up, live and get married in your hometown, stay there, work there your whole life, die in your hometown, whatever. It's just never really been my gig. And I get itchy feet really fast. And being a digital nomad and being fortunate enough to work in an industry where I can work from anywhere with a laptop and an internet connection, it gives us a level of freedom that most people don't have, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I've done a lot of contracts and stuff and worked with different companies, but my favorite thing to do is consult
Yeah.
and work with partnerships and stuff. And man, I love the ability to work with several different things. I've got such bad ADHD, but man, if I'm going on 10 different things, I'm in heaven.
Yep.
I will tell you, I took a this test that was, man, I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was this test that my buddy Don Dalrymple did, and I'll get you the name of it. But it's an assessment basically that helps people to be able to figure out what they would best fit in, but also helps people figure out how to hire people within that will help affect their organization. And they did this assessment of me right before I left Big Commerce. And then 3 months later, when I had started my own agency, and the assessment flipped on me. And I went from being bored out of my mind, and it was obvious in the assessment because I'd gotten to where I was doing my whole job in 3 or 4 hours and then socializing the rest of the day and killing
Wow.
it. But I was bored. I wasn't happy. It was leading to unhappiness. And I honestly think like some of us just got that extra fifth gear. And if you got it, use it. And once I got into doing stuff for myself, getting out there and being a part of projects and putting myself out there to be a part of those projects and make them successful, man, very satisfying. And it keeps you satisfied because it's like you're constantly doing something new. You're challenging yourself. And for instance, like I played in bands all through college. Now I'm challenging myself I've started writing a new record after 25 years of nothing.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
got to keep challenging yourself.
Man, I couldn't agree more. And I tell you, the other thing that I think can challenge us or challenge our entrenched ways of thinking and feeling is travel. That to me has been probably one of the greatest joys and greatest educational experiences of my life is being able to travel the world. I haven't traveled as
Mhm.
much as I'd like to, but I've traveled a lot more than most get a chance to. And
A lot more than
this
me.
but just feel like travel is such an incredible education. And if you want to build and exercise your empathy gene for people,
Mm.
people say, oh, go and walk a mile in someone's shoes. Well, literally go to where they live, literally go to the places they eat, literally go and sit alongside them doing what they do on a daily basis. And this year we had a chance to go to Europe, and then we went to Morocco. We spent a week in Morocco, and then we spent a week in Turkey, and we went up into the Atlas Mountains, and we saw how the Berbers lived.
Oh
And
wow.
I tell you, it has definitely humbled me when I travel the world and I realize just how fortunate I have been to live the life that I live and to also have empathy for, because as an American, because I was born and raised in the United States, I was born and raised in Southern California, it's just culturally natural in the United States to become quite self-centered. And that's, I think there's a few factors
Mm.
for that. It's not just every American is arrogant. I don't think it's that. I think it's that you
Yeah.
have to become quite inwardly centered because the market is so competitive. The job market, the business market, the entrepreneurial space, just absolutely everything is so competitive that you really just have to go internal. You got to go deep and you got to want it if you want to go and get it. And I think that creates an environment where we don't become as outward facing as we need to be if we really want to understand how the world works. And it also helps when you travel to realize that 99% of the people in the world, first of all, they're good people. Like I meet good
Mhm.
people. I meet amazing human beings literally everywhere we go in the world. Of
But
course,
that's what makes America great. We're a melting pot.
yeah,
We
yeah,
keep changing, we keep growing, we keep becoming more, in my opinion, because of that melting pot. And one of the things that people don't realize is Texas was one of the ports that people came into. So
yes.
Texas is very diverse, just like New York and San Francisco, because people used to come in through Galveston.
Yeah, I
And
was
so
going to
you
say
have
Galveston.
a huge population of all different kinds. There's total cities of one type of person. There's little German towns. There's little totally like Hispanic towns. There's Jewish colonies and all sorts of groups and subgroups. And we were a big part of the melting pot too. And man, I enjoy that. I think you're right. I will say this: Robert Alvarez used to really push one value a ton. And man, I can't preach this enough, but it was called being ambitious, being both ambitious and humble.
Wow.
My background is I have a theology degree, man. And honestly, as tattooed up and out there as I am, I struggle with shyness when I'm in a new crowd or don't know people in a crowd. If you ever notice, if you're the only person I know, we're going to be buddies until I get used to other people around me in a crowd. I'm nervous. So most
Yeah.
people don't take me for that, but what he taught me is it's really important to be humble. It's so important not to think that you are better than other people, or even if you are smart, or even if you are good at something, be open to other people, but be humble, but always be ambitious. Never back down, never quit, never be one of those people that apologizes for who you are, but put yourself out there, be strong and be forward. And I see that in you, man. You definitely, like, the funniest thing is the way we met for the first time in person,
Yeah.
because he was in a store and I walk in the store for the first time and didn't realize in Brooklyn that it had this little drop off. We were
I
both
know,
at the
right?
same, and I fell in the door and then flip around and see it's Jason. And I'm like, hello, sorry.
Yeah. I love that.
So I humiliated myself. I don't know about humble, but I was humiliated for sure in that moment.
Well, I nearly tripped about 2 minutes before you came in there. I nearly killed myself coming in that step anyway. So I think they need to put some sort of yellow stripe tape or something on that
Something.
step because it was a step in, and because you didn't have to duck in the door, you actually probably did have to duck, to be honest, because you're like about 6 inches taller than me. But
Yeah.
I didn't have to duck to go in the door, and so I didn't naturally assume there was going to be a step down there either. We're on the same page. Don't you worry about that.
I'm a total klutz, man, too. It's funny because like anything with feet I can do. Wake surfing, like skateboarding,
Line
like
dancing?
uh, I'm not a dancer, man. My wife, she can cut a rug. I cannot. I cannot.
Wow.
I'm not a dancer and I'm not a singer. I'm a guitar player, and but I try to stay in my zone sometimes. But yeah, man, honestly though, one of your greatest features is that you are ambitious, and I see a lot of that in you. And I'm proud to call you a friend. I got to say, one of the things about you is you're exactly this person offline too. If you think he's a great guy, you're right. He's honestly just a nice guy, very positive, very good attitude. And man, it's cool when you get to meet people that you look up to in the business, and then they meet and exceed expectations. And Jason, you really done that for me.
Thank you. Look, very kind words, totally unexpected, but totally appreciated. And it's interesting because I never, not to say that I'm like a hero of anybody, but there's this saying, right? Never meet your heroes because you're almost always going to be disappointed. And I never wanted anybody who like got to know me primarily online first. I never want them when they meet me in person to be disappointed. I never want them to feel like this guy's he's just a facade. It's just all for show. That's not who he is, right? And so I've always tried, because people say in your content will be better if you're authentic, but some people don't necessarily know what that means, and they don't necessarily know how to be authentic. And I guess for me, because I'm a Scorpio and I've always had an outgoing personality, and because I wear my heart on my sleeve just naturally, it's part of my personality. It's part of my hard
Me too.
wiring. It would be impossible for me to play a caricature of myself online and then be my normal self like in person. I wouldn't be able to do it. Even if I wanted to do it, I wouldn't be able to do it because I just wear my heart on my sleeve so honestly and openly. So I appreciate that you recognize that. I appreciate that you can validate that, because that's something that's really important to me, is to not be fake. I just never want to be a fake person. That I genuinely want the best for people. I genuinely want people in our industry to succeed. I genuinely want to put the spotlight on people that deserve it, that don't normally get it. That's my true heart. And so if that comes through and shines through, then I'll feel like I've done something good for an industry that frankly has given me a life I could never have even dreamed of, to be honest.
Yeah, dude, I started out life in construction, man. I started
Wild.
out digging ditches, man. I feel very blessed that I can use my mind. When I hurt myself in 2019, hurt my neck and my lower back, I found myself, I've always been a big dude, man. I could move stuff, I could do any physical labor. Now I can't. And it's very humbling, but I'm very thankful to this industry for giving me a career where even though I physically can't do all the things I used to, that I'm blessed enough to be able to use my mind and have good people around me that have given me the opportunities, like Brent Bellum, Robert Alvarez, people like that believed in me. And I'll tell you, they took some bets on me that I wasn't betting on myself, and it built confidence a lot for me. But I started out as well. I started out going to school for ministry. So I have to say the center of who I am is to try to help people. So being in an industry where that's what you get to do on a regular basis. And if you do a good job, you help pay for hiring other people and getting other people jobs. And like, you're a generator of business when you do what we do. I love that idea. I love the fact that you can take a company that's doing nothing and in a year have it going through the roof because you know what you're doing. That kind of stuff, man, that's so much fun. And like I said, it's a job creator. How many people can get a spin-off jobs during their career like that? That's awesome.
As Dave Ramsey says, we're very fortunate that when we work and if we do a good job, we get these certificates of appreciation called money. And I love that. And I tell you, as someone who now, for my second entrepreneurial, actually, it's probably my third or fourth entrepreneurial go around with my consultancy now, I tell you, it's
Mhm.
so exciting to be the master of your own destiny. And
Right.
it's super interesting to me that if I hadn't have started building a personal brand and becoming really more visible in public, because I only started being visible in public about 12 years ago now. And so the reality is, for the first half of my career, I wasn't visible. I wasn't speaking at conferences. I wasn't putting out content. I didn't have a podcast. I wasn't visible on LinkedIn. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Gary Vee was the person that caused me single-handedly, he caused me to pull finger and actually start creating content. And he just
Mhm.
challenged me so much in the beginning, because I'd been following him for about a year before I started making content. And he just kept pounding and pounding that pillar of, oh, you think you're a thought leader? You think you know some stuff? You can't decide if you're a thought leader. The market will decide if you're a thought leader. So the only way to know is to put your thoughts out into the world and let the market decide. And he said, if you
Absolutely.
think you know some stuff, if you think you're good at something, start talking about it, start sharing your passion with the world, and the world will decide, not you. And so I just took that challenge on the chin, and I said, okay, Gary Vee, I'm just gonna start. And he said, look, there will be so many good things that will come out of this exercise, even if it's just learning, even if it's just an education that you get out of this, but you won't know all the good things that will come out of this until later. You won't
Mhm.
until way probably years down the track. You won't know how many good things will come out of this. But you have to do this on faith. You just have to trust that good things will come out of this, even if you don't know exactly what they are. And you have to be
Mhm.
willing to take that risk. And you have to be willing to put in the work for a long ass time to realize the benefit. And so it's really about grit. And it's how long can you do something that's
It's
painful?
more about grit now than it's ever been, too. Don't do
Couldn't agree more.
a mistake anymore. People think it's easy now. It's not easier. You got to do it. If you don't do it right, you don't make the money.
Yeah. Or you don't get the audience, or
So,
you don't get the kudos, or you don't
right,
get the opportunities to speak at conferences or anything else. My ability to speak at conferences now is a direct result of building a personal brand over more than a decade, combined with those didn't just come to me on a silver platter. I reach out to these people. I reach out to the conference organizers. I say, how can I help? How can I contribute? Can I moderate a fireside? Can I moderate a panel? Can I contribute? Can I help you with your content program? Can I help you? Can I speak? Can I be an MC? And I reach out to these conference organizers and I just email them or I message them on LinkedIn and I say, how can I help? Here's some ways I think I can help, but if there's another way that I can help, let's jump on a call and let's walk through it. So these things don't just come. You have to want them and you have to go get them.
hmm
You have to grab them with both hands because those people may not, there might be lots of people that know who you are, but the right people might not know who you are. And so you got to
right,
put yourself on their radar to make an impact. And so for me, it's all about how can I make the biggest positive impact in my industry that I can. And one way to do that is people say, oh, I'm not really into that self promotion thing. I'm like, well, no one's going to know you exist unless you self promote. That's just that
right.
you don't have to do it in an arrogant way, but you have to remain top of mind. And if you're not self promoting, nobody else is going to promote you. It's that simple.
We live in a world that says if you self promote that you're arrogant, and that's not true. You don't have to be a narcissist to self promote. Are
Yes.
some people that self promote obvious narcissists? Absolutely.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, I don't think that I'm the hottest thing out there. I feel humbled all the time when I meet people like you that can just blow me out of the water on certain things or have so much more knowledge. Your B2B is unparalleled with anybody I know right now, as far as consulting and stuff. Kudos, man. And I'll tell you, you're right, man. If you've got the guts and you'll put yourself out there and you'll have a little faith and you got to love yourself a little bit, not in a
Yeah.
bad way, not in a self pride way, but you have to love yourself enough that when people have something bad to say about you, that you're going to be okay because you can't believe it. You can't stand it and take it in every time. You have to be like water off a duck's back and just keep moving forward because people make fun of me. I've had
Yeah.
people report me on Facebook and stuff for pictures because they said it was AI because I took a picture with somebody, it's stuff like that. It's ridiculous. But I will say the one thing that really helped things change for me is I stopped spending as much time on Facebook and I started spending as much time on LinkedIn creating content and interacting with people. And even though I only have 4,700, I think at this time, people that I'm connected to, they're such good connections that the reach is so much further than that. Man, just you got to pick it up and keep moving forward and treat it like a business if you're going to do it. If you're going to get out there and podcast or try to influence or anything, pick a lane, pick a platform. And if it's business influence you want, which I feel like me and you, that's our primary focus. I don't care if I'm popular on YouTube. I don't care if I'm popular on Facebook. I don't care where I'm
X.
popular.
Yeah.
I want to be popular on LinkedIn with the
Yeah.
people that are building stuff, with the people that are doing things, with the people that can make me money. Because
Yeah.
that's really what it's for. That's why you and me are promoting ourselves.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd be on the beach sipping drinks or something. I don't drink, like I
Yeah.
said, but you get the point. But yeah, man, dude, I love what you're doing, and I love how encouraging you are, man, because you are the kind of guy that always talks to people when they're asking questions and stuff. You're very kind. And like I said, y'all, he's exactly who he seems on these podcasts in person. Same dude.
Man, like that's the nicest compliment that I could receive, to be honest. That's just amazing. My heart is truly in this. And I do love people. I genuinely want people to succeed. I want them to win. I want them to be fulfilled in their life. And I want them to realize that I want to inspire people to realize, and that's not just from an e-commerce perspective or just from an entrepreneurial perspective. I just want them to realize that there's 1,000 different ways to do life. You have to find the way that works for you. And for me, growing up in Southern California, staying there and dying there was not my way. It was not the way
Yeah.
that was gonna, it was not the way that was going to give me fulfillment. It was not the way that was going to give me joy. I have an explorer's heart. I have an explorer's mind. And so staying in that one little little pond was never going to work for me. And I'm married a Kiwi. My brother-in-law's a Kiwi. My grandfather was a Kiwi. I lived
Yeah.
in New Zealand for 28 years. Now lived here, continue to travel all over the world. And I only bought, we've been in this house for 1 year. This is the first house I've ever owned in my life, apart from a tiny house, off-grid tiny house
Wow.
that I owned in New Zealand. So it's the first time I've ever owned a house, paid cash for it, don't have a mortgage. I avoid debt like the plague. And so I've never wanted to keep up with the Joneses. It's never been about appearances for me, ever. It's been about joy. It's been about peace. It's been about how can I invest for my future. It's been how can I create a great life for me and the people that I care about and I love, that I'm surrounded with. And I'll leave us maybe with this. And I'd love your take on this because you grew up with a lot of Hispanic community around you. One of the things that I love about Mexico and Latin America, full stop, is they have this hierarchy of priorities that is almost completely universal, partly because it's 82% Roman Catholic, but it's deeper than that. It's part of the Latin culture, which is God, family, community, in that order. That
Mhm.
those are the three priorities for Latinos. It's that simple. So God priority number one,
Same
family
here.
priority number two, and community priority number three. End of story. And so for me, like when we traveled, I did 20,000 kilometers driving around Mexico when we moved here in 2023. We toured all around the country in 2023. And there's lots of street dogs. There's millions of street dogs here, but I saw almost no people living on the street. I never saw tent cities. I never saw people sleeping under bridges. I just did not see I'd see the odd homeless person, but it is almost non-existent here in all the places I've traveled. And I traveled from big cities down to small pueblos and everything in between. And homelessness is just not a thing here. And I think, at least as far as I can tell, it's because family would never let another family member get to that point. They would, even if they only had a one-bedroom house themselves, if they had a cousin or a brother or an aunt or an uncle or something like that that for whatever reason ended up on the street, they would take them in. They would look after them. And
That's one of the most beautiful things about the Spanish culture is how they stick together. They are a
yeah,
beautiful people, and
yeah,
they're not perfect,
yeah,
but man, I will say some of the best people I've ever known in my life are from the Latin culture, man, and Hispanics, and you're right, man. They watch out for each other. They try to help each other. And I agree with you. That's got to be the reason is the tight family and the feel of sense of responsibility for one another.
yeah. I think that's a win. And the other thing is they have no expectation that the government's going to look after them. So they
Yeah.
know they have to look after each other because the government's not going to
Dude,
do it. And I like that.
some of the best craftsmen you will ever see, by the way,
Yep.
in Texas are Latin folks, and they're incredible, like generational craftsman talent. Certain things too, man, just absolutely. Yeah, my dad. It's funny. Growing up in West Texas, I even had family that was Hispanic. I feel like my life is richer because of the influence of those people and the way they influence the family unit in those areas. It's incredible. I had my own Mexican mama, by the way, and I don't mean like girlfriend. She was a Mex. She was my one of my best friend's mother, and she loved that I'd hang out with her son because I keep him out of trouble. So anytime I walked in the door, she'd be like, Mio, what do you want
Yeah.
to eat? And I could just, man, it was like going to my own restaurant. It was the best. So I had my own Mexican mama and she took care of me. So I really got to feel that hospitality like I was part of the family. Yeah, man, it's an incredible culture. And I'm glad you see a lot of that too, though. I think
Yeah.
that's important. We need to look at each other and see the best in each other too.
Man, I couldn't agree more. Listen, I look at you as the Matthew McConaughey of e-commerce, and I like that. I love it. Your personality. Yeah, let me flip the script for a second. You're just like this guy. You're honest. You're straight up. You call a spade, and I think that's one of the reasons why we connected so well and so tightly because we're wired similarly in that way. And I'll throw it out there to my audience that hey, look, if they ever run across you at an event, at a conference, at a dinner, anything like that, be bold. Go up and say hello to the e-commerce redneck because you're going to have an amazing conversation and I can guarantee you that and you'll walk away. You may only meet as acquaintances, but you'll walk away as friends. My friend, super appreciate your time. And look, I can't wait. I know I won't see you in Scottsdale. Can't wait to see you at whatever next event we cross
We're
paths
going to
on.
cross paths and we'll have to do some collab and get on each other's podcast again or do a unified one, something like that. But yeah, man, I look forward to it too. And thank you for having me on, man. It's been amazing since Shoptoberfest. I've been on so many podcasts, but it's been with a lot of my heroes. You're one of them, and I'm thankful. And this is believe it or not, this is a milestone being on your podcast. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for allowing me to do that.
My absolute pleasure. Now, what's the best way to get a hold of you? LinkedIn, your website. If people want to get a hold of you and talk all things e-commerce and growth, what's the best way?
Go to Ecommerce Redneck. You can schedule a call with me, a 15-minute call. We'll go over things, talk about things, and whatever it may be, however I can help you, I've got time for you. So just set a time, ecommerceredneck.com. And if you could, don't super care about YouTube as much, but I'm trying to get more followers because I don't have a ton of followers. Most of my following is on LinkedIn, and I put most of my content on LinkedIn. But go over to YouTube and follow me and Facebook as well, and we'll be putting content out on those. So I appreciate it, though. Thank you for letting me plug a little bit.
My absolute pleasure. And I'm guessing that the E-commerce Redneck is not just on YouTube, but it's also on all of the audio podcast platforms as well.
I've got to update it on Spotify, but I do it on Spotify, YouTube, and LinkedIn at the moment. I need to get it to the other platforms, but I figured for what I'm trying to do, those are the most influential.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. Look, normally I've brought in a new process at the very end of my podcast episodes. I ask one question and then I get you to ask me one question. So this new question I've introduced only in the last couple of episodes, I'm going to ask you, if you could snap your fingers and you could change one thing about our industry of e-commerce, what would that be?
If I could change the way that this industry works, one thing, I would make these platforms I would make them realize what legacy knowledge is and that they shouldn't get rid of it so easily. That is one thing our industry has done poorly. They have fired people because of paycheck price when they shouldn't have fired that person. I've seen it all across the industry from all the big names. I won't name names, but that's what I would change because I've seen too many talented people believe that they're not worth enough or they're not good enough, and they're absolutely the best at what they do. And I hate seeing good people get broken.
Wow, I love that. That comes from a good place in the heart, and I absolutely love that. I couldn't agree more. I see it too. I've seen it way too often, and I couldn't agree with you more. Now I'll flip the script. I'll hand the microphone over to you. Let you ask me one question, any question you like, personal, professional, doesn't matter. Mr. GRYDER, what's your question for me today?
My question would be, what is your biggest platform focus? Is it LinkedIn? Is it YouTube? Where you see the most play? I would love to know like where you're getting the most play and if that changed in the process.
Yeah, look, for the first 7 years of my content game, I posted almost every single day for 7 years to LinkedIn. That's how I kicked off
Wow.
my content career. I missed the odd day, but for 7 years in a row, I posted almost every single day to LinkedIn, thousands and thousands of posts. And that sort of helped kick me off, and that sort of started to help me make some really important connections in the industry and in the community. I did start out in I think it was 2015 or 2016. Started actually right in the beginning. I started doing short little video clips. I didn't realize it was going to maybe turn into a podcast one day, and I was just doing videos. And then in about 2016, I started doing the podcast, and it was a solo podcast, and I was just recording me talking about things and then uploading it to YouTube. And then I realized, geez, this is really difficult to be sustainable, and I need to be speaking to other experts in the community because I don't have a monopoly on knowledge. I don't have a monopoly on experience. I need to be talking to people that know things that I don't know and exposing that to my audience and giving them a platform. And so in 2017, I decided to make it an interview focused platform, but I really didn't double down and become consistent with the podcast until mid 2021. And so I was doing the odd episode since 2017, but 2021 was when I doubled down and I made it a minimum of one weekly episode on a Friday talking about tech. Then I added B2B, and that became our Wednesday episode. And then I added mentorship clips, and that became our Monday episode. So now I'm up to 3 full-blown episodes a week. And I've really just doubled and tripled down on the podcast. LinkedIn is really hard now. I can tell you in the last 2 years in particular, getting growth on LinkedIn, getting cut through on LinkedIn has become harder than I've ever seen it. And I've started to diversify a little bit more. I've started to double down on Reddit. I spend a lot of time on Reddit answering questions, jumping into the
Nice.
subs, contributing. I've actually gotten some good business off of Reddit, which is amazing. And then now I'm distributing my short video clips, not just to YouTube, which is really where I had my focus, but also distributing that to Insta and TikTok, which for a while there I had doubled down on Instagram. Didn't see a lot of traction there. So look, LinkedIn is still my primary social media platform that I spend time on, for sure. No question about that. But I've changed my tactics on.
I feel like Reddit can be too close for the dark arts for me. It's scary.
Yeah. I guess the way I've managed that is I have gone a totally different direction to 99.9% of the people on Reddit who sit behind an anonymous profile. I have an open profile, and I'm very clear about who I am.
Mhm.
And it has actually my personal links to LinkedIn and all of my other platforms. And so I'm very honest and open on Reddit, and most people are sitting behind an anonymous profile.
Right.
I find that helps get cut through there. But when it comes to LinkedIn, my tactics have changed quite a bit. And I spend a lot more time commenting and engaging on other people's content than just producing my own there. And I found that to work better with the new algorithmic updates than up until 2 years ago. It was like, hey, I'm driving hard with my own content almost exclusively. And now it's mostly about engagement now.
I'm having a lot of fun doing it though nowadays, aren't you? I mean, there's so many
I
more
love it.
tools than we used to have.
I love it.
Man, it's way easier than it was 3 years ago.
Oh, and look, I'm emceeing more physical events now than I ever have before in my career. I always did it a little bit, but now I've doubled and tripled down on that. And I've already been to 4 conferences this year, and I'm going to be emceeing 2 more conferences in November. And I am loving, especially post-COVID. I almost forgot how much I love the in-person discussions. And I forgot, it just crushed me, the no in-person thing for 3 years in New Zealand during COVID. And then once we started to be able to go back to conferences again, I was like, man, I miss this. Yeah, I love the in-person thing too. Listen, brother, I appreciate your time. You've been very generous with your time. You're an amazing human being. I have always enjoyed our banter online, and to finally be able to meet you at Shoptoberfest was absolutely incredible. I wish you every success. And look, I can't wait to see you again in person. Chat to you soon, brother.
You too, brother. We'll see you soon.
If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason.